Hey, good morning, Heidi and Sharon. Welcome to Wake Up to CX Reality.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you with coffee, or have you had your coffees already?
I've had mine, just wolfed down my breakfast. So yes, I'm good to go.
And what's the weather? I mean, we should do this. Just checking on the weather. I mean, what's the weather like where you are today? I can see some sun beaming on your face, Heidi. So is it good down in Brighton?
It is. Yeah, we've got some sunshine again this morning, which is
lovely. And Milton Keynes, is it breezy and bright?
It's finally broken, hasn't it? We've had so much rain, but yes, you've got sunshine.
We're the same. Yeah, we're the same here. So let's hope it holds out. Well, look, thank you both again for joining us for this episode of Human Edge. So, and we've got a growing audience, which is lovely. So it's good to hear that people are finding our conversations and our points on CX of relevance. So I'll just get you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll just remind people of the concept of Human Edge, and then we'll get into our discussion today, which is around AI and human judgment, and I'm looking forward to this one. So, Heidi, if you'd like to go first.
Hello, everyone. I'm Heidi. I've got 20 years and growing in CX and service design, leading mostly large, complex transformations around the globe. But I'm now at the intersection of customer experience and the upcoming projected $5 trillion wellness economy. So bringing those two together.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. And Sharon?
Good morning, everyone. So my world is CX and leadership training. But yeah, so about 25 years in the customer experience and employee experience world, and how the two fit together, and how important the two are if you get them right.
Fabulous. And to make the trio, although sometimes Michael Brandt is with us, he's not here today, but I've been working like Heidi and Sharon for a lifetime in customer experience management and helping organizations structure their strategies ready for transformation and gaining the value and the contribution you can get from CX when it's well executed. Right. Okay. Wonderful. Let's get on to the topic. So this came about through personal experience. So myself and one of the junior consultants were working on a platform to do some recruitment for a campaign we're working on to recruit some customers for interviews. And we were struggling to actually find where we needed to put a special code in to allow us to then use our link for the survey template that we were going to be, or the interview code that we were going to be running. And no matter how we looked at it, we couldn't understand what we needed to do. The box was grayed out. So they had a chat bot, and it came up, so it's an AI chat bot, and we went in and started to talk to it. And every time it gave us really good explanation and showed a screen grab of something we couldn't see.
Right.
And we just kept saying, but we can't see that. So, well, if you scroll down, you'll be able to see it further. And we'd scroll down and we couldn't see it. And eventually it went, I realize now that you're on a different page to the one I'm on. And because, and it's that particular point, it was thinking we were looking at a survey page and we were looking at an interview page. It was pointing us to a different direction. So it was absolutely right, but we'd asked it the wrong question in the first place, as far as it was concerned. But as far as we're concerned, we didn't know what good looked like, so we could only tell it what we could tell it. And we hadn't defined we're on the interview page rather than the survey page. And it just kind of dawned on me. And it actually ended up, we got a professor who works with us, who knows the platform, to come in. And it dawned on me that for about half an hour, 3 individuals had to take up a lot of time to find something, because a system thought it would be more efficient to do it this way. Maybe it was very efficient because the company wasn't using any time up, but we were using our paid time 3 times of it, including the professor's time, to actually try and find something very, very simple. And I think that's a bit of a challenge for human judgment. And it made me wonder just how many other scenarios there are like this, where as a customer, you feel like you're asking the right question and you're getting a different answer, because you and the chatbot or the AI are just talking a different language. I mean, I don't think this is a one-off. Do you see this as being a challenge for customers at the moment?
Yeah, I check HR stuff every now and again, because I do quite a lot in the kind of employee and the HR space. And I was double checking national minimum wage for apprentices as part of some of the recruitment we were doing. And it came up and told me what it was for the age group. And I looked and thought, well, what we've already put on our contract is higher than that. So have I got it wrong? So I said, check again, is this correct? And it went, oh, sorry, that's outdated. That's 2 years old. And gave me a new amount, which still wasn't right. I was like, okay, give me the source. And took it to the page, and then I found the right detail. And I thought, okay, mine was right. I wasn't overpaying somebody previously, but hang on a minute. If I hadn't have double checked it,
and that's subject matter expertise, isn't it? Because if let's be honest, if somebody else who didn't know that was asked just to do it on behalf of, say, a HR director or someone, you wouldn't think to double check it. No. So you're providing the wrong information. And I guess on the basis that you've not challenged it, that I would think it's probably giving the right information and reserve it again.
Yeah. And it was
hopefully with you challenging it, it will maybe correct itself. But that's a really good example. That's a really good example. So your domain expertise was essential there to assume that, you'd ask the right question.
Yeah.
And the wrong stuff. Heidi, what about yourself? Have you got a situation you can think of where this is a problem?
Yeah, I think there's I mean, specifically in the healthcare industry as well, there's a lot of people using it now, maybe not on a particular company's site, although they might do, but they're putting information in, wanting stuff back, especially if they think it's quite a small issue. But I think it's quite well known now that from a research perspective, that actually a lot of the information that comes back isn't correct. And there's even advice now to sort of say to people, actually, use AI if you're a clinician so that you can oversee it and then reference that back to a patient. But that actually putting that information in somebody's hands that's down to their health, where it isn't, it's not, it can't be trusted 100% because it doesn't understand the nuances. It's not going to understand the lived experience of that person. That it's not reliable. But I personally used it the other day for me at home. This is AI, and it was about, I'd got these ingredients and I wanted it to come up with a specific recipe for a certain type of meal I was trying to do, and it did it. Brilliant. Followed it all through. It tasted absolutely horrendous. It was just the worst thing ever.
It's amazing.
Oh dear, it looked like mud and it tasted like mud. Anyway, I went back and sort of went, this tasted awful. And then it sort of went, oh, right, well, that's because the combination of these ingredients don't actually chemically work together. And it's like, but I would never have thought to ask that question. Is this going to chemically work together? Whereas I know that if I went and got my Jamie's cookbook, he's already figured all of that out for me. He's the expert. I can rely on him. So I did just jokingly, it sort of does the whole thing of, can we restore any of the ingredients? Well, no, because we've cooked them all up. It doesn't understand the realities of life. And then I just jokingly said, can you send me a refund? I've had to throw all the ingredients away. But of course, it apologised and said no, it couldn't. So obviously, in the future, I'm going to stick to having my
your Jamie cookbook
books.
But this is, I mean, this is a bigger thing. I mean, you joke about it, but actually, there is no consequence for the AI in that situation. Where do you go and bark back? You go and bark back to the AI room, and it kind of, says to you, sorry, but I'm not responsible for this. You made it. If you'd have cooked that from a Jamie cookbook and it was awful, Jamie's reputation is on the line. You can publicly say Jamie's not a very good cook because this is an awful stuff. So there's that interesting thing about the responsibility and the accountability that comes through, isn't there? Because you've asked a perfectly adequate question and you've got a perfectly adequate answer back. And I was studying this in terms of why do we trust it so much? And actually, what's really interesting is that we've supplemented. If you and I have if we have a conversation, your body language is part of the response mechanism that I'm using to assess whether you're telling the truth or not, and I can trust you. With digital platforms, it's speed and completeness of information. That's what gives you trust. So the faster it is and the faster it is and the more complete it is, the more likely you are to trust it. So in that respect, if it had missed an ingredient out, then obviously you'd have gone, I don't know if I can trust this, but it's given you everything. And you have then, in good faith, spent your time and your ingredients, your money, making something that actually is really woeful. And I wonder how often customers are doing this. I was thinking of the situation where you have nuance. So I call up my car insurance and I say, I'd like to make a change. Now, where does that take me to? Because it can take me down the road of, okay, we're sorry to hear that. We'll arrange for your insurance to be cancelled. But actually, what I might be saying is, no, I would like to add my wife to the policy, or we've had a change of car. So because I haven't used midterm adjustment, which is what that officially is, and change, and then you think about things from consumers' duties perspective, we should be managing the outcomes of the customers. You're more inclined to take a customer down the path of cancellation because that word change suggests I want to change my insurance. So, we're not equipped, I don't think, as like you weren't there, Heidi, we're not equipped to ask all the right questions of this super brain who is not equipped to understand the nuances, the colloquialisms, the intent, or anything like this. Where does this go? Do we need to improve the quality of the AI, or do we need to rethink where it's being deployed?
I think, first of all, there's a question it's not actually a super brain. It might be more efficient and faster, but it actually isn't comparatively as super as our own brain and the capabilities that we actually have. But I think there's a lot of similarity between how AI is functioning at the moment in companies, in exactly the same way as if we put a service agent, a brand new service agent, behind a computer, and that same incidence where we would ask a question, they go, computer says no. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. If we come up against a barrier, that if the configuration of that system is so tight that there's no flexibility for that agent to do anything, they're in the same example, really. And I think there's that thing of like, well, what's the strategy? Is it to just be able to put new untrained people either in front of a computer that makes all the decisions, a system that does it for them? Is that the same way that AI is being adopted by that organization? Or is it to go, actually, we've got really experienced staff who understand the product, they've probably lived through it and used it as well, but we will use AI to help them do a better job than they already can do. I had a really good saying the other day, and they sort of said that AI is really good at mirroring, but it's not, it just can't mentor. So because it doesn't have a lived experience, it doesn't understand the nuances of human life, which is why it's still so important to keep people there at the front line. Because if somebody does work for an insurance company and they've got those policies and they've been through different life experiences, they're going to know the types of questions or the scenarios that people might want to ask.
Yeah.
And it's how then can that AI facilitate and support them to do a better job, rather than sort of like ring fencing them and preventing that sort of flexibility and movement, thinking that there's just one path all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw it's a really interesting post. There's a guy posted saying how amazing the staff in an airport were, because he was walking through the duty free, and went up to a particular booth, and a lady came towards him and just said, "You should try this." And he said, "What's that?" And she said, "This is really good when you're tired." And he said he didn't need to get her to qualify. He's standing there with his long haul ticket, and he said he looked shattered, and she was talking about something. So she read all the data around him, which was, he's not in a rush, he's going slow, he's holding a ticket, he looks a little bit full on. So therefore she was able to serve the best answer to him. And you just think, how many times do you go through those things where there's a display that you start entering information to kind of qualify what's right for you? And I think you're right about that front line. You've got to remember, this is what an experience looks like. It's not about the efficiency. And I saw McDonald's saying that their sales have gone up since they've bombarded people with digital choice. And of course it would, because we're not going to stand there with a human and have a conversation about the 74 different combinations of what we can have. But we will have we might just get someone saying, "Are you all right? You look a bit tired. You've been on the road for ages." You will have that kind of interaction there. And I don't think that's being factored into the discussion. And it does worry me from a consumer's perspective that they're not able to kind of push pause and say, right, this particular topic we're engaging on, I'm out of my depth a bit here. And obviously there's a group of customers vulnerable, and they're going into it with full appreciation of, or expectation that the interface is completely equipped to deal with their situation. And of course it's not. We said it's got no understanding, no nuance or recognition of kind of what's going on around it. I mean, where are we in an interim period, Sharon? Is it going to improve, or do we need to kind of put some hard lines in place to say, these are the conditions under which we allow customers to engage with AI?
I think that I've been really thinking about the kind of the limitations and the improvements that I've seen in AI recently over the last couple of weeks. And there's two bits. One of them for me, for my own use of ChatGPT, it can't timestamp. So if you say to it, I've had a bit of a bad day today, it'll go, well, you've had this, and this yesterday. And I'm like, well, no, that was 6 months ago. But it sort of groups all of it together because it doesn't remember when you entered it in.
Yeah.
So it kind of, and if I say I'm having a bad day, where before it might have been a bit, well, I'm a computer and I'm a bit wooden, I think it's almost trying to go the other way a little bit at the moment. I'd be interested if you've seen the same. And this is where I was thinking about customers, but if I enter, I'm having a bad day, it now seems to almost go the other way of now going, oh, Sharon, that sounds horrendous. Come here. That sounds really bad. Oh, poor you. Yeah. And I kind of noticed this recently and thought, where we've kind of said, well, AI will never have the emotion and that side of things, is I'm almost kind of seeing it a little bit go over the top. And I did wonder from, customers using it from a healthcare point of view, whether it might start going, oh, that sounds horrendous. Oh, you poor thing. And kind of pull up that kind of pressure and worry a little bit. Yeah. Obviously, I'm using it and I'm going, right, stop it. I'm not that sort of person. I don't need all the stroking and everything, which it seems to be trying to do. The other thing I noticed it doing was, I'm doing this bit of a February push thing. So I'm using it as a bit of a cheerleader. So I'm going, right, this is what I've eaten today: scrambled eggs and tomato. And I put, all right, I've had the same for lunch. And it'll go, that's very good. And it's not lazy that you've used the same thing twice. And I've gone, Daisy, so there's a few bits a couple of times last week where I've kind of thought the wording that it's used has kind of put extra thoughts in my head to go, hang on a minute, that's
bias, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or it's making an assumption of you. I mean, you may have bought more because it was efficient to do so at the supermarket to buy more than less. But it's not qualifying that. It's just making it. Actually, it's making a judgment, isn't it?
It is doing that, and I think there's quite a lot of assumptions made throughout AI, and I think that's where it's not got it quite right yet. So there's quite a few things where I think it should be asking more qualifying questions, like a human would, to say, okay, how long have you been feeling this way, or do you think this is linked to that, or okay, that's great, but would you do this? It almost is slightly quicker than it should be, and kind of goes, this is the answer, and this is everything I've assumed from data you've put in quite some time ago. Ta-da! Which, I think that's where the restrictions are. I'm sure that will improve, and definitely the timestamp bit is causing an issue, but gradually I think that'll, as I say, the emotion bit is kind of jumped ahead, and I think it's too far a little bit at the moment. I think it needs to just a few more qualifying questions would help.
But then in that situation, like the person in the airport, there was no qualifying questions needed.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's kind of empathy, it was kind of recognition, and I know where you are without needing to qualify it. So we're actually going to take longer to achieve the same in some respects, aren't we? We've got Amit Bhatia, who's a brilliant CX consultant, is just posted a point. He said, kind of, this is good stuff. At this point in time, the danger of AI is it's giving answers that are very plausible, but a human may come up with a very different answer. And leaning on AI will cause us to miss these nuances that a human expert brings. The key words here are at this point in time. You know, will it change? I'm confident, he says, AI will eventually improve and cross this chasm. If it should go that far. I mean, I think it's very interesting perspective you point there, Sharon. I know people who don't want to be hugged. They don't like being hugged. It's just not, you know, that emotionally they're not like that. So actually, if the AI is saying, let me wrap my arms and give you a proverbial hug, then actually it's going to be, this isn't my type of AI person. You know, I wouldn't hang out with this person if it was a real person, because you know, I don't interact like that. So I think it's, you know, it makes this assumption it's making, this judgment it's made. I wonder if it made that judgment on you because you've typed in, I'm looking to, you know, have a plan for this month. I haven't put that in. So does it assume I'm fit and healthy and, you know, on top of everything because I've not asked that? Or is it just I've not gone there for it? You know, it sees such a small percentage of our worlds. And to your point about date stamping, you know, if I'm in that car insurance situation, it sees an even thinner slice of my life, doesn't it? I mean, we're having these sorts of discussions. Do you think these sorts of discussions are the same discussions that are being had inside organizations when they're discussing AI projects? Or do you think it's, you know, I spoke to someone yesterday and they said their AI team led by digital and data had created many projects now, and they were deploying these AIs out into the business and saying, optimize and implement them. You know, without starting from a root cause or a need or an outcome they were trying, they just developed some capability. Now it's over to the teams to work out how to use it. So I wonder, what do you see in organizations? Have we got this empathy and understanding of AI as part of the project team yet? Heidi, what's your view on that? So I know you work a lot with service design, so you'd think it should be a part of that.
So I think some companies will and some others won't, and that generally they will adopt it the same way that they'll, you know, it all depends on how siloed their organization is. We can see that even with user experience. That's sort of done in isolation. But there are other organizations that are really clear on the brand experience they want to bring, that the brand position is embedded into the customer experience strategy, and the customer experience strategy then leads out and sort of says, right, well, if these are the things, these are our service behaviors, you know, these are our service principles that we want to deliver, then anything else that comes from user experience or like AI design has to really sort of follow from those. If they don't, they're going to be developed in isolation. And that, I think, is when we see, when AI has been adopted, it exposes the thinking that goes on behind the scenes, because it's not seamless. So I think there's definitely people that are doing it both ways and bits in between.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. We've got a comment here from Kat Garbage. She runs a marketing agency called Big Butterfly. She says, what worries me is whether AI is convincing to vulnerable people. Thank you. Children, people suffering with mental health, elderly people with dementia, those suffering loss. AI is trying to mimic a caring sentiment being, and it does it in a very convincing way. People now have AI boyfriends and girlfriends. Yes, we've seen this. So how do we protect those vulnerable groups from being served by AI, which actually they need, where they need a human to understand their context better? I mean, this is, you said about healthcare, Heidi. I mean, you would imagine with a crisis of headcount, it becomes a feasible alternative when you're looking at the, looking at the OPEX and the CAPEX model. But when that comes to the reality of what that experience is like for people, are we going to go there too quickly just to try and sort out that capacity issue? Do we worry about this?
I think it's already a problem. I think there's two things. There's the capacity issue, as in there's just the waiting list for seeing a clinician or a professional is so long, but also the financial situation that a lot of people are finding themselves in at the moment, that they literally can't even afford to go and see somebody that can work one-to-one with them. And there's a lot of promotion and a lot of money being invested by big tech companies wanting to sort of do this kind of work, interpersonal sort of work, whether that's counselling or therapy or whatever it is. There's a push and a drive by the tech companies to invest the money to do this. But like Sharon was sort of saying, it's designed a bit like social media and stuff. It's designed to keep people on there. You'll ask it something and you'll never find it go, that's the answer. It will always suggest 2 or 3 additional things that maybe you haven't thought of. So it keeps people there engaging, which then ultimately leads to the overwhelm, because you end up with such a long trail of stuff that it thinks you should be doing. But it also is designed to over people please, and that's quite well known. And there doesn't seem, I think they've tried to make adjustments, but it's not sufficient yet, so that people get into some unusual, it's not normal or not a natural sense of comfort from the way that it speaks. And as you say, if there's somebody that's vulnerable, that might appease them in the moment, but that's not going to build emotional resiliency or anything else. And it can actually lead even to more loneliness, because they're only getting one tone of conversation happening. And when they're going out there in the real world, that's just not how we talk as humans. There's ups and downs. That's part of it.
Well, I think we probably should have another session on, well, what can be done. I think it'll be quite good, bringing our expertise from years of work with organizations, just share kind of some basics or some considerations that organizations should apply. We're coming up to our time, but I'd like to share a point that Martin Hill Wilson has made, a great author and a fabulous advisor to industry on customer experience. And Martin says, although we easily assume AI digital colleagues are like us, it is not the case. And I think it's really, really good point that, they're not 1% close to being what we are like. AI's context and ours to make sense and make judgments are different, with strengths and weaknesses on both sides. And as with people, there is no such thing as a single AI with uniform behaviors. So, I guess that's very true. We've been talking about ChatGPT or Gemini, and actually your version of it is different to my version of it, as is my Instagram reel. We forget this is not one entity. Like with our colleagues we work with, we're all very, very different and bring different things to the table. So it's like saying, I guess, oh, my colleague works really, really well, and then that applies to mean that everyone's colleagues work really, really well. It's not the case, is it at all? But let's just, before we just close, just like to remind people what Human Edge is all about. And thank you both, really, really interesting conversation. And I think, you demonstrated bringing the context. So, what we're proposing as Human Edge is you do need that human in the loop, sometimes just to reference and talk to and get some advice, get some context, get some sense checkings, a sounding board. And that's what we can offer, kind of, very much just dial in as and when you need, sort of on tap. The good thing is that we don't need 6 or 7 questions to kind of get us warmed up. We've got the experience to be able to give you advice and direction, which has, recognizes your intent, understands your nuances. We're kind of full of experience in what we've been doing over the probably 60, 70 years between us. And as a consequence of which, there's a lot of understanding of what not to do as well as what to do. So you can draw on these decades of experience. And if anyone would like to find out more about that, it's a very simple approach you can take. You simply book an hour with us, free of charge. You get to meet us, understand who you'd like to work with, how you'd like to work with us. And then basically you have a team available to you every month from as little as 4 hours a month. You can book us for and use us as you need. As I say, you can use it for mentoring colleagues, for studying certain topics, sharing it with the team, a one-to-one just to understand a particular requirement, get some advice on how you actually apply things to leadership, etc., etc., etc. Whatever the brief is, we've done it. And whatever the sector or the geography is, we've been there as well. So we'd like to think we can add a lot of value in an intense impact way. So that's the whole purpose behind Human Edge, and I hope you'll appreciate the value of that in certainly against the context of the topic we've been talking about today. We get together every couple of weeks, so we'll be back maybe with Michael as well in 2 weeks' time. These recordings are available on the Lexington YouTube channel. So this is the 3rd one we've done on other topics such as personalization. You can go and find out what we think about that and bring our experience. And we hope that it does, challenge some of your assumptions, gives you food for thought, and inspires you to, make sure you keep the human in the loop going forward. And as I say, if you'd like to engage with us, you can contact any one of us and we'll set up that hour, and you can meet us and see if perhaps we could be a surrogate team there in the background, available as and when you need, just to dial in to help you move things forward with your CX endeavors and ambitions. But for now, Sharon, Heidi, thank you both very much for your time and sharing, always, without any condition. And selfishly just giving away what you know. And I really appreciate that, because obviously it's one of the reasons that I like working with you both. And it's one of the traits that we found of kind of customer-centric mindset, is sharing everything in the spirit of progress. We need to do that. So thank you both very much. Have wonderful weeks. And I look forward to re-engaging in a couple of weeks, or maybe before that, if somebody contacts us and says, yep, book us an hour and I'd like to talk to you guys. So thank you all.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thanks, Christopher. Bye, Sharon. Bye, everyone else.
Bye-bye.